Estás viendo Canal América, televisión dominicana para el mundo.
A Time for Truth show is sponsored by the Office of Dr. Bernard Fialkoff, a periodontal, dental implant and laser specialist in New York City, for over 40 years. Dr. Fialkoff was honored by the International College of Dentists and Pierre Fauchard, and received the Presidential Lifetime Humanitarian Honor from the White House. Call us at 718-229-3838.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard, you don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart, yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your fears.
Welcome to A Time for Truth show. I'm your host, Dr. Bernard Fialkoff. It's a pleasure to be back with you again tonight. And let's deal with something that many of you have been asking. How do I avail myself of all the episodes, become a member of A Time for Truth? Very simple. Go on YouTube. Click A Time for Truth show, hit the subscribe button. We'll be more than happy to accept you as a member, subscriber. There's no fee, there's no requirement. The only exchange we ask is that you help us make a happier, more flourishing world where we all can exist, which is the purpose of this show. So tonight, we're going to deal with something that has to do with our feelings or our insecurities, and some of them having to do with AI. But tonight we're going to talk about you and I, not AI only. And so we're going to get going on this show, which is going to be very important. I think you're going to enjoy it tremendously. And engineer, let's put on the first image. And this week, security is at the forefront of what Americans are looking at. There are tensions rising, obviously, from the Middle East, involving the tensions between Iran and the United States and the conflict in that area between Iran and Israel. These aren't just distant events. The world has become much smaller. Distances seem not to be as great. And these are shaping conversations at home, feelings in all of the United States. Oil prices have been climbing really unbelievably. Grocery prices, markets are reacting, and uncertainty is growing and expanding. And for Americans, this is no longer an abstract or maybe something that will occur. No, it's become an actuality. Not a probability, but an actuality. And it affects how much we're paying for gasoline per gallon. How stable our economy and the global economy feel. Because human reaction and emotion has a lot to do with that. And how safe is our future? Creates anxiety. Creates, a lack of certainty, which means lack of being able to plan, to move forward into that future. And at the same time, political decisions in Washington are under more scrutiny. There's much more debate over what's correct foreign policy. Should the military be involved or not? And international alliances are dominating what they're doing, what we should do, what needs to change, who should we expand to, who should we cede from. These are all capturing tremendous amount of attention in our daily lives. The underlying question is very simple. Where are we heading? And how will it affect our everyday lives? Engineer, let's put on the next image, please. And we'll talk about money as security, which shapes how people feel about the world. Because money is the exchange that we utilize to not only to communicate, but to be able to obtain those products, those services, those necessities of life. This week, Americans are continuing to feel the pressure from rising mortgage rates, now above 6%. And for home buyers, the changes that occur for them are quite drastic because they planned on having this expenditure and now they don't have enough. And dreams of ownership delayed, and with those dreams, the illusions that create the emotions that we sense, just like when we get to July 4th and there's a wonderful emotion. But when there's anxiety, the emotion is different. It's like the despair of Monday morning in traffic, in hectic traffic. It's not the same emotion. I know you all agree. Decisions become much more cautious and slow. Everything slows down. Affordability becomes the central concern, and housing is only part of the story. Because you know, if you go to the grocery store, what a few $100s bought you a year ago will buy you maybe a third or a half of that amount. Your monthly bills stay high. They haven't come down. Your costs remain high. And even those who are lucky enough to have a stable income are adjusting. They're spending less. They're more cautious and insecure, so they save more, which again slows the economy. It's not collapsing, but it's definitely slowing and tightening. And that shift is felt across all counties, communities, states in our nation, in millions of households. Let's go to the next image, please, engineer, and we'll talk about stability. So important factor, because this factor determines how we move forward, whether we have that comfort and confidence to do so. And behind the headlines, there's something less visible, but very prevalent in America: stress. More Americans are describing their lives with an overwhelming feeling, not because of one single issue, but because of the accumulation of many different factors across the board. And for the financial pressure has increased. They feel a global uncertainty. Their expectations are being curtailed because they don't know how far to stretch. They don't want to go too far and pop their balloon. So this creates a constant problem in present, a constant tension in the moment, a worry. You don't really have your attention on where you're going. You have it back here somewhere, or over there. And this has led to people being exasperated and commenting and complaining about their emotional and mental well-being. And also commenting no longer in private, but really in public. And it seems like it's come out as part of the American language and dialogue on our social media and on the programs that are coming out to try to help us with these. So part of it is good, part of it is not. The fact that we have more stress is not good. The part that we're communicating more is excellent, because communication is the key to a solution. Many people are complaining about burnout, that they need to slow down. But when you slow down, if your production goes down, then the amount that you have for bills goes down. So saying that, well, I'm burnt out, I'm going to slow down as a solution, is also not necessarily the correct thing to do. We have to have a balance. We have to really take a look, I think more than ever, at how to function as a community, as an organism. An organism is an organization of beings. An organism is not one being or two beings or a select group of beings, but it's an entire community. Community being working together. If you look at the derivation of those words, that's where we have to really head. Working together, working in common, and working in balance. Small routines that seem so insignificant are important because each one is a step to a higher level. We need to have some relaxation at the same time. That's where the collaboration comes across, so there can be an agreement. Because with agreement, everything can be solved, everything can be balanced, everything can be equilibrated and made more in harmony one with the other. When it's not, the conflict, the strife, the stress that happens in our communities has been evident as the violence that occurs, as the drug use that occurs. In this world that feels so unstable, people are constantly searching. And we need to offer solutions. I will be showing you some videos as we go on to give you a few of those from some nonprofit programs that I have found very useful and also without cost, which I find is great. Let's go to the next image. We're going to start talking about identity and expression, which in the United States of America, we're so lucky to have freedom of expression. And while some forces create pressure, others inspire, and respire. Expression. Across the country, this is a good factor and a positive factor. There's been a shift toward the importance of you being yourself, of expressing who you are in your fashion, in your lifestyle, in the songs that you like. And people are moving away from having to fit in to being uniform, like in the same uniform. And there's more authenticity, which is a fantastic thing. With that authenticity, we have to respect the other person's authenticity and collaborate and communicate in common for the mutual needs that really are uniform. And it's no longer in our world about trends. It's more about who you are. What is it that represents you? What is it true for you? And this has been visible in the jewelry, in special spaces, celebrations. And something also that's been fantastic is you don't have to be perfect. You can be who you are. Because what is perfection? Isn't it really what we consider? So if it's a consideration or a thought, doesn't each one have a different consideration of that perfection? As long as it's heading towards a greater survival, that perfection can be reached in many different ways. So meaning is so important because that change is important in creating the future and the aesthetics of our world. And I want to show you one of the videos I promised you. Engineer, let's put on video number 1, please. And there you see one of the public service announcements of a really wonderful group. It's free of charge. It's called Youth for Human Rights International. And when you look at what's happening in our world with the technology we have, something that has to really keep pace are our human rights. What is respected for the other? What is, the freedom of that person or that group? Freedom of speech, freedom of religion, freedom to move about. Really, if you look at those are basic human rights. In this group, Youth for Human Rights International, you can find online. It's got beautiful DVDs, beautiful public service announcements, great literature. I think you'll love it. You should check it out. And has a lot to do with our world, with all the change that's going on, because our world needs humanity. Our world needs warmth, and our world needs the guidance and integrity of human beings that really have gotten it to this point so we can bring it higher. Many talk doomsday, but that's just a viewpoint. We don't have to have doomsday. We can just keep expanding and flourishing. Let's go on to the next section. And engineer, if you can bring on the next video, the next image, please. The next, there you go. Thank you so much. And here we're talking now about technology and artificial intelligence, which is a fantastic tool and is advancing at breakneck speed. There's a lot of fear from that, but that's why we just spoke about human rights and assuring integrity, because the integrity behind controlling the technologies that we have will be key and crucial to what goes on and is allowed to occur based on the agreements of all of humanity. Because really the world has become very small. Our globe, you feel sometimes it can be holding in your hand like a ball, and it's important how we handle that globe like an egg so it doesn't crack from misuse of the technology. And this technology is changing how we work, how we live, and how we interact, really across the globe. You've probably all been exposed to some of the false information which has come out, which needs to be regulated, because that can't be allowed to continue, because you have millions or billions of people being affected by something that is not even true and could really endanger the security of our planet. It's something that if it's used properly, the speed of it can solve problems dramatically also. So again, the importance of the human being, of man, to decide, to guide, to foretell where we want to go, and to set goals for our technology so that we utilize it in those purposes that validate and create more constructiveness in our group, in our community, in our nation, in our world. To use it for opportunity, to increase efficiency, growth, possibility. Really, the options and the possibilities are endless. But for others, as I mentioned, it raises concern. Because if they've lost their job, the security is gone. If they've been exposed to really degradation or defamation or bad public relations on social media or on the internet, that creates a tremendous amount of invalidation for that person or for that group, of a suppression, of a feeling that they can't really obtain their goals, they can't move forward, and they contract. We have to realize that every individual that contracts in our world is a contraction of that economy. Because what is currency? The derivation of currency, which is money, currency, is something that flows like a current. So currency needs to flow because money needs to flow. If we put money in just a few bank accounts and so many people are left aside without occupations, without productivity, a flow begins to restrict, and it's like shutting off the faucet. You may have tremendous amount of water in that reservoir, in that lake, But if you shut the water, there will be no flow. Without flow, there's no irrigation. Without irrigation, there's no plant life. Without irrigation and without that flow, we don't have water for ourselves to quench thirst. So everything really in life is flow. There's a saying, disease is a stop. And health and happiness are flows. So we have to maintain integrity and control over our world. The conversation is no longer about whether AI is going to influence the future. It obviously will, and it's a tremendous tool that we can utilize. But how we utilize it and what that influence may be, that is a concern. And how quickly and how proficient and how efficient and how regulated it is a very important factor for us to put into the equation. From creative industries to financial investing, because now there are AI programs for investing, for promoting, for solutions. Really, there's AI for everything. So we need to just see how we're going to put this and implement this tremendous tool that we've developed. It's becoming foundational. But the challenge, as I said, is not more innovation. Sometimes mere speed is not a positive thing. If you don't have stability, if you don't create points of agreement to create floors in a building, how will you get up to the top floor if all you have is beams on the side going up at breakneck speed with no floors, with no elevators, with no way of stabilizing each level? Most of you would say, well, obviously not. Who would build such a structure? Well, the corollary to AI is not far off. We need to maybe at this point curtail its growth, stabilize and reach some agreements globally, nationally, locally. It's very, very important when you go into a game. If you're an athlete, you prepare for the game. You don't just rush around and rush to the game, because the other team, if they're well prepared, if they thought out their strategy and they put their stability in place, they will win. Very important to realize this. As we close this show for tonight, let's get into some other factors. And engineer, if you will, let's put on the next image. Thank you very much. And there you have a balance. Because in life, there are always different factors. If you really want to look at it this way, what is life? Isn't it really just a game? Some people say, well, it's a show, and the show must go on. And yes, but not every show survives. Not every show gets great ratings. Not every show has a lot of people in the audience viewing. Those shows that entertain, that move forward, that have a message, they have an agreement within the society, they move forward. Let's move forward in the same way with what we have in our world. Let's quench this never-ending desire for speed with some organization and take some time realizing that everything is not just about a number, a monetary return, a percentage of growth, a return on investment. Let's look at humanity. Let's look at wellness. The Surgeon General of the United States of America has shown that our lack of social interaction, our isolation as we sit in front of a computer all day long and not communicate with anything but cellular phones, is leading to physical disease. Look at this online. Dr. Vivek Murthy, The Crisis of Isolation and Loneliness in the United States of America, from the Surgeon General of America. Let's, in this program, reflect on what's happening in our country. Let's balance our multiple realities. Where there's uncertainty, let's bring security. When there's tremendous pressure and stress, let's bring a way to adapt and control. Today's show wasn't about opposing teams. We're talking about the future of humanity and the utilization of the technology we've developed. You would not have a child and just set him free to run down the street. You'd guide that child. You'd educate that child. You'd give them discipline. Well, we can look at AI as our child and that it's a tremendous athlete of unbelievable potential and how it can shape our world. But let's realize as humanity that we need to be in charge, not to be invalidated, not to be led astray, because there are always factors in society that are invalidating, crushing, squashing, and really are the segments that seem, in my opinion, to cause most of the problems that we have. So let's look at a video of how we can take our situation that we have now with this tremendous AI, tremendous technologies that we have, communication abilities, and go forward and flourish and prosper. Let's put on the next video, please, engineer.
21. Flourish and prosper. Sometimes others seek to crush one down, to make nothing out of one's hopes and dreams, one's future, and oneself. By ridicule and many other means, another who is evil-intentioned toward one can try to bring about one's decline. For whatever reason, efforts to improve oneself, to become happier in life, can become the subject of attacks. It is sometimes necessary to handle such directly. But there is a long-range handling that seldom fails. What exactly are such people trying to do to one? They are trying to reduce one downward. They must conceive that one is dangerous to them in some way. That if one got up in the world, one could be a menace to them. So in various ways, such seek to depress one's talents and capabilities. Some madmen even have a general plan that goes like this. If A becomes more successful, A could be a menace to me. Therefore, I must do all I can to make A less successful. It never seems to occur to such that their actions might make an enemy out of A, even though he was no enemy before. It can be classed as an almost certain way for such madmen to get into trouble. Some do it just from prejudice or because they don't like someone. But however it is attempted, the real object of such is to make their target grow less and fail in life. The real handling of such a situation and such people, the real way to defeat them, is to flourish and prosper. Oh yes, it is true that such people, seeing one improve his lot, can become frantic and attack all the harder. The thing to do is handle them if one must, but don't give up flourishing and prospering, for that is what such people want you to do. if you flourish and prosper more and more, such people go into apathy about it. They can give it up completely. If one's aims in life are worthwhile, if one carries them out with some attention to the precepts in this book, if one flourishes and prospers, one certainly will wind up the victor, and hopefully without harming a single hair on their heads. And that is my wish for you. Flourish and prosper.
We can flourish and prosper. Thank you for being part of A Time for Truth show. We'll see you next week. Be well.
This show was sponsored by A Time for Truth Foundation Incorporated as a community service.
Sometimes life can be so damn hard. You don't know where to go. Everything keeps falling apart. Yeah. You try to do your best, but only God knows that you've given everything you've got, but the world takes you down. You just keep moving on. Let your feet